You made it, you got the role, and now you're ready to prove that you deserve it. And you're probably already planning the changes that you'll make. But what if I told you that the first thing that you should do within the first 90 days is not that? I'll tell you why on the other side. Welcome to Crossroads and Catalyst, the podcast with Shanita B. I am your host. This is where we discuss how a thoughtful, wise, and strategic perspective at a crossroads can be the catalyst for change in your leadership and career. I want you to do me a favor and hit the follow button in Apple or Spotify or whatever podcast player it is that you're using to listen to this podcast. And you can also go to my website, crossroadsandcatalyst.com, and follow there because I don't want you to miss not one episode because this is the first of a three-part mini-series on the first 90 days as a new leader, and you will not want to miss any of this. Just to give you some background, I've had the distinct honor of coaching and mentoring new leaders through their first experiences as leaders. And it's not something that I have taken lightly. It really does matter that people would care enough to ask for your thoughts and counsel as they're embarking on a new journey, especially something like their career, because in my opinion, that's a big deal. And let me just help you to understand, and you probably already do based on your own experience. Starting any new role can bring on a level of anxiety and fear, but when you start a role as a leader, I think sometimes it might compound that. Let me explain to you the anxiety, the invading thoughts of inferiority, and maybe the moment when you look at the job description because it's quite polished and it's comprehensive, and then you look at your own resume and you wonder, well, how did I fool anyone into thinking that I could do this job? I want to know, does that sound familiar? Or maybe I'm just talking to myself, which I guess technically I am, but I think you know exactly what it is that I mean. My point is that you may be struggling, and this is before you've actually gotten into the nuts and bolts of the job. If you thought that your new title was a pass to come in and make immediate sweeping changes, you might want to reconsider that. And listen, if you were explicitly hired to turn things around or to lead a transformation, that's totally different. Because typically in those scenarios, management has already come up with a plan and clear mandates that they want you to carry out. So it is expected that that is exactly what you will do. But for most leadership roles, listening, learning, and building relationships are the foundation of strong leadership. And you don't want your zeal to make a good impression to cause you to make some embarrassing mistakes. And believe me, it won't be hard to make, especially as the new person on the team. You're kind of like it, fresh meat, right? So I want you to think about it. If you proceed with making changes without first understanding the landscape of the environment, well, you're going to risk alienating team members and colleagues and possibly your boss. That's not the position where you want to find yourself because making some changes, and they might be necessary changes, but doing it too soon without having the appropriate level of information, well, you're going to risk roadblocking, bottlenecking, and possibly hindering other processes because you may not really know what the impact will be down the line. Okay, and all of this for the sake of trying to look as if you know what you're doing. Okay. I'm not saying that you don't know what you're doing, but what I am saying is that you're robbing yourself of building the relationships that you just might need down the road. And not only that, you could be irritating the heck out of people along the way. You have to build some relationship capital because doing it the other way, well, you're going to bankrupt yourself before you've had a chance to really gain a solid footing. And that's not the place that's going to be comfortable for you. It's actually going to be quite awkward. And if you think that you're experiencing anxiety right now, you just wait until you start irritating people. Okay. And they start giving you the side eye. You're definitely not going to feel good. So you might be thinking, well, I'm not really there to make friends. And while that might be true, you definitely don't want to go out of your way to make enemies. Okay. The only thing that I can think of that's worse than having bad neighbors is having bad coworkers. That's just really something that you don't want. These are people that you have to work with. And I venture to say that you need your job. So because you need your job, you have responsibilities and obligations make it easier on yourself, okay? Because life is hard enough without compounding these things in the workspace. And what I don't want you to do is something that is completely avoidable. I don't want you to do that and put your livelihood in jeopardy. You just don't even want that to be called into question. So, why are the first 90 days important? Well, this is really the best time that you have, that you're given the benefit of being the new person. And therefore, the expectations to know certain aspects of the job, it's virtually non-existent. It's really a good time for you to acquaint yourself with the people and the processes of the organization. And I don't want you to walk away thinking that this means that you're not working. Okay. Skill is required to understand the operations of a company, especially if you're an external hire, because you don't have the foundational and institutional knowledge to lean on to assist you with making some changes and sometimes asking what would be some intelligent and competent questions. You really have to start from the basics sometimes. And so what you're gonna find yourself doing is you're gonna read some policies and procedures, contracts. You're gonna participate in continuing onboarding for your role and whatever else might come along with that. It just, of course, depends on the context of your particular position. But this is one of those things that you cannot gloss over. I do not want you to minimize this. Okay. And then for those who, maybe you're in your role where 90 days is a luxury because your company needed someone in a hurry, and everything is kind of dependent upon you and the decisions that you make. Again, that's going to be slightly different, but and this is what I would tell you. If you're in a situation where they didn't have anybody and they've been waiting to fill this position and you are it, you are the one who has to make some decisions with very little information. Understand this: unless the process or the system is completely broken, you would do well to try to understand the goal of the process, the timelines, and the stakeholders. And by stakeholders, you want to understand the direct and indirect. Who's doing the work, who's the recipient of the work, how is this going to impact operations. You want to try to understand some of those things, even if your scenario is one in which, hey, you got to be the one to make those changes and make those decisions, because really it kind of goes along with the transformation that I mentioned earlier. So I want you to recognize that you are likely going to be at the mercy of your team and your colleagues, and they're going to have insight that you won't have. And of course, your experience and your expertise is definitely going to play a part in all of this, but there are still things that you're going to be blind to because you're new to the role. And that's okay. Okay. We just have to take it for what it is. But we don't want to minimize that this is a golden opportunity. The first 90 days are. And that's how I want you to see it. Okay. So I know that what I've said is a lot so far, but listen, if you've already started your new role, it is not too late to implement some of what I'm going to outline for you. Okay. Here are some things that I think that you definitely want to consider and work out an action plan so that you can institute some of these things. Number one, you're going to definitely gain a solid understanding about the following: the scope of your work. This is something I think that we tend to think that whatever is written in the job description is exactly what we're going to do. I can tell you from experience, it is not always like that. I have had jobs where I have been hired in as a leader, and what was written in the job description and even what was explained in the interview did not always necessarily align with the work that was actually needed when I got into the actual, when I walked through that threshold. Okay. So I want you to make sure that you understand, what are you there to do and what are you supposed to accomplish? Ask the questions. What are the expectations? Who are your direct reports? I've had jobs where the people who reported to me, they didn't even realize that they were supposed to report to me. And because things are constantly changing in a lot of different work environments. And so sometimes things are not communicated in a timely manner and things get missed. So you do not want to take for granted that people know who you are, that they understand what you represent for them and to them, that they're even supposed to report to you. So you want to just go over the fundamentals and make sure that everyone is on the same page. That's how important it is. And then you can start creating and developing the more targeted questions that are necessary to help you to really better understand what it is that you're supposed to do. And then the other thing that I want you to gain a solid understanding about are the relationship dynamics. You have to know who's who in the zoo. This is, I think, one of the most important things about those first 90 days, okay, is understanding who are your lateral peers, who are the upper leaders with whom you will work, if any, who has the influence that can impact your role and your work besides your boss, who's connected to the people who have that influence. You want to work with your boss to understand the people with whom you should meet. Make a list of these people. And as you continue to gain insight based on the conversations that you're having, the meetings in which you're participating, then you'll be able to list or add other people to your list based on your findings that you think that you really need to be connected to. And again, I what I want to do is help to position you not just for today, but for 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road. Because unless this position is your final leadership role, you might have continue to have a desire to be promoted. And so the more people you know, or the more that you understand about the people who might have some type of influence over your position, in the long term, the better off you'll be. Okay. And this, again, is going to assist you with doing your work today. But it's one of those things where, again, you do not want to dismiss the importance of building those relationships. And you want them to be genuine relationships. Okay. I'm not talking about just getting to know people so that you can get something from them. I have mentioned in some of my earlier episodes that the importance of building these relationships is to be genuine and sincere. You want to make deposits and show people that you are there to accomplish something and to do your work in an excellent way, that you are someone who can be depended upon. So this is why I'm mentioning this to you. Because it's that important. And so as you're understanding who some of these people are, the next thing that you're going to do is you're going to start scheduling meetings with the people that your boss may have mentioned, along with your team. Okay. You're going to meet with your team, and then you're going to determine who your direct reports are, because depending on your leadership role, maybe you have a couple of direct reports, but maybe they have several people who report to them. You want to make sure that you just make your presence known, and that you are there to work with them and to collaborate with them and to listen to them. Okay. And so you also want to schedule meetings with your lateral colleagues, uh, schedule meetings with your boss, and then with anyone else who, again, as you're gaining information and insight, who is going to be important to your work, or who may be recipients of your work, and it would just be a good idea to let them know, hey, I'm here, this is what I do, I want to assist, let's get together and talk about it. Okay. um, because the goal, again, is to gain the additional insight that you need to carry out your duties, to help you make decisions on what needs to be changed. But you have to understand what it is that might need to be changed. Maybe everything is running great, but maybe it's not. And I've never had a scenario where I have walked into a new position and everything was great the way that it was being done. I'm sure you probably have already experienced that there's always a better way to do it. And sometimes the way people have continued to do their work, well, they haven't changed the process in 20 years because it worked. But man, is it slow. And if you have the opportunity to help to build that up, and assist your team, supporting them and giving them the autonomy to do that, I think you'll see that that relationship building will actually be very helpful and beneficial to you and to your team. Okay. And then you can just start with simple questions. These don't have to be, uh, really hard questions. They can be very simple with, what kind of work do you oversee with the organization? I would just contact someone and say, hey, I would like to schedule a meeting. I would just send an email. I would like to do it according to your calendar, whatever is convenient for you, and just want to introduce myself and get some insight from you. And then when we would meet together, I would just say something, okay, well, here's a little bit about me and my background. Do you mind sharing with me who you are, how long you've been with the organization, what you've done? And you'll find some very interesting information, get some very interesting information from them when you do that. And one of the things that you want them to understand is that you're there to help. And so you could just ask a simple question such as, what are the pain points that you're having that you think need my attention? And woo, you might be prepared to start writing or typing, because some people are going to have some things that they're going to share with you that have probably been an issue for quite some time. But again, the more you talk to people, the more targeted your questions will become as you continue to go through this iterative process of just listening. So what you have to do is develop a curiosity. That's really where it starts. But I do not want you to, again, I don't want you to dismiss the importance of listening, learning, and building those relationships. And it starts with you coming in with a curiosity, not coming in to drop a hammer, not coming in to tell everybody what to do and that you're the new sheriff in town. Everybody knows. Well, I say that because, again, I've had experiences like that where there was some confusion. But for the most part, people will know what your position is, but you may have to help provide a little bit more information as you're gaining information. And then you can develop a plan. And as you go through this, you should start to see a theme or several themes to help you to determine what your goals should be at the end of this 90 days, right? Who is actually responsible to do what? Do we need to move some resources around? There are going to be a number of things that come from it. Again, I recognize this is quite a bit of information. You might want to hit replay once you've listened to it. And again, assess what you've already done in your new role. Is there an opportunity for you to now go back and have some meetings with some people who you may have missed or who you didn't really know that you should have spoken to, but now that you have a little bit more information, the time is right to move forward with that. Okay. So again, this is just episode 1 of this mini series. Take it seriously, because you do not want to waste a moment of the early days of your leadership role. Okay. Um, and just think about this. Okay. I have told you that I have mentored and I have coached new leaders. I didn't have that, and I was left to figure it out on my own. I guess the good thing that I can say is that I am curious and I don't mind asking questions. I don't mind people uh, thinking that, oh, well, does she even know what's really going on? I don't mind that if me asking you a question is going to get me the information that I need. I didn't even have so much as training on how to perform timekeeping, let alone how to lead a team. It's just one of those things where I've picked up a lot of things, and because I've been observant, because I've listened, and I have had the opportunity at least to talk to other leaders who had been doing it for years to get their insight. And you go to trainings and avail yourself to all kinds of development opportunities where you can find them. And that's some of what I did. But in certain situations, it was assumed that I and others in some of the places where I've worked, that we would just magically know how to lead. Okay, well, this is because most people believe that technical skill is enough. And so if you didn't hear the last episode, episode 49, I will link it in the show notes, because I talk about why technical skill is not enough. But if you recognize that you're ready for support, or that you need support and that you want to move forward, I've opened 5 spots on my calendar specifically for that. So take a look at the show notes and click the calendar link and reserve your spot. Okay. Next week, I'm going to be sharing part 2 of the first 90 days as a new leader. And I appreciate that you have taken the time to listen. And I am confident that you have gained something out of this process. So I appreciate that you've listened. And if you're looking for a brief and reflective insight beyond the podcast, I want you to sign up for the Catalyst newsletter. You can do so at crossroadsandcatalyst.com/newsletter. And I will also leave the link to that in the show notes as well. So until next time, be thoughtful, be wise, and be strategic. And remember, crossroads reveal who you are. Catalysts shape who you become. Every decision matters. So make it count. I'll talk to you next week.